The sun is shining in Cairo. The sun is shining in Cape Verde. What a epic day of World Cup action we come off of. And I am David Goss with you for our daily First Touch 26 live show every single day, breaking down all things World Cup and getting you ready for the biggest games in the world live from our studio in New York City. So thank you to all of you for being here with me. And I am lucky, once again, to be joined by my co-host today. We've got Eric Krakauer and Matt Doyle. I'm David Goss. I'm the one on the left. Eric's the one in the middle, and Doyle's the one on the right. Three guys, good-looking dudes.
Yeah. Do we have sponsorship from like Turkish hair transplant places? We might need one.
Well, we are actually the starting backline for the Egyptian national team right now, and we are really proud of what we were able to accomplish on the day. A huge day of soccer, as I said. We will talk all about the teams that have qualified. We'll talk about the third place spots, and then, of course, we roll again one more time. So we finish up the group stage today. Finally, after 427 days, 937 soccer games, 19 million cards, we will come to the conclusion and eliminate like 4 teams from this 48-team World Cup and move into single elimination. But we will close out the group stage this evening. It starts 5 p.m. Eastern time, so a bit of a late start. England plays against Panama here actually in New Jersey, and then Croatia facing off against Ghana, and then we will roll through to the following games after that. The big ones for DR Congo, a chance to clinch their spot in the knockout rounds for the first time ever with a victory over Uzbekistan. We will have Argentina, Jordan playing a dead rubber late at night. Algeria, Austria, we will talk about, as we had spoke about yesterday with Michele, could be one of the shameful matches in World Cup history. And then did you know that Colombia plays Portugal today?
Are they?
Yeah.
I like your jersey.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Who are you rooting for?
Well, these guys.
Oh,
I don't
really?
know how well it's going to go, but
Yeah,
you know.
I'm not sure either. So we will break down that game and what we expect to see in that one. But we always like to start with our 3 big things. Well, you weren't with us yesterday. We missed you. Now you're back around. Well, what's on your mind?
Watching this World Cup in part through the lens of how are the tournament favorites going to do. And for the most part, they've done well, the 3 teams that I think are in the top tier. But it doesn't feel like either France or Spain have gotten out of second gear yet, maybe out of third. Even though France won 4-1 yesterday, they're kind of going through the motion, which is terrifying because they won 4-1.
They've got 10 goals in 3 games. They've conceded twice.
Yeah.
And they're in second gear.
And it's like, when are we going to see the real France? So that's one. And then Spain have not looked particularly good. Yeah. And part of that was the way Uruguay played last night, which was just pure bloodlust.
Yeah.
Zero
Play
soccer.
is a loose.
Yeah, good riddance. But like, I don't know. I was hoping to get more from those 2 teams in the games, especially because France put out their best 11 or close to it anyway. And it hasn't quite clicked. And again, they won 4-1, so like maybe I'm just an idiot, but I wanted a little more.
Okay.
Yeah, and yet it's terrifying, as you said, because once they click into gear, I'm not sure anybody can stop them. My lens is a little bit more solipsistic, more selfish. I look at the roots for the big teams, the contenders, going towards the final or making whether or not they have big obstacles getting to the final and making
a Portugal fan about to complain about Argentina's pathway to
not complain necessarily, but I'm glad I can get my words out now that you've said that. Essentially, I look at it from a Portuguese lens. You know, which one of the big teams has a chance to be knocked off before we have to face them? And when you look at the path that Argentina have, wow, it's been working out wonderfully. You know, not to mention some of the refereeing decisions that they've had go in their favor as well. And this is nothing against Argentina.
No.
It's just that they're the reigning champions, and there were some dubious calls in 2022 that helped them as well. But, you know,
This is Michele complaining about the O2 World Cup as an Italy fan again.
He's got reason to.
No,
yeah,
for sure,
but
then
his
country only won the next World Cup on 4 fake penalties.
Yes, fair enough.
Blatter apologized to Australia.
But that's the way. I mean, that's the way that I look at most tournaments. I stopped looking at the European Championship that way because Portugal won in 2016. But now it's about the World Cup. And I understand that it's a little bit selfish when you're talking about the World Cup and you're supposed to give analysis about all these teams. But yesterday, that's all I was thinking about during the Uruguay Spain game. I wanted Cape Verde to go through emotionally, but I was also looking forward to the potential clash between Uruguay and Argentina.
Yeah. So Argentina gets Cape Verde in the round of 32. They will then face the winner of Australia against Egypt, and then they would face the winner coming out of a quadrant right now with Switzerland as the top team, and then coming in will be Portugal or Colombia whoever sort of gets the result tonight. So that's going to be Argentina's path to a potential World Cup semifinal, which I think most people would take. And if you look at some of the other teams that are in these situations, I think there becomes a point on paper where you're like, oh, well, these are easy games for all of them. And then the reality becomes Spain didn't beat Cape Verde in the first game. So, like, we do this thing, but they are not traditional blue blood countries. They are not countries that have success in knockout rounds of the World Cup. Although Harry Suter's been waiting for revenge on, Leo Messi for 4 years. So maybe that's the big moment. We have a ton of the brackets starting to lock itself into place. But my big thing is obviously going to be, I was in Little Egypt on Steinway Street yesterday in Astoria for the Egypt-Iran game, and it was absolutely electric. It was, they technically clinched their spot when Uruguay fell in their result. So the vibes were pretty high pre-game, which was odd because people were not really like in the game as much.
Yep.
And then post-game, when they clinched second spot, everyone out into the streets, fireworks going off until at least 1:30, 2 in the morning, flares, people with bigger flags than I've ever seen in my life. I don't know where you purchase a flag that large, an Egyptian one, especially in New York City. I don't know who's selling those, but congratulations on making your bank this month. People standing on cars, waving flags, singing, drums playing. It is one, and we've talked about it a couple of times, the representation. New York City is a great place to watch the World Cup because of the communities you have. But even more, one of the things that I had said, I think on the last show we did before the World Cup, which is an opportunity for these communities to show their pride and show who they are. And I think do so under a lens, a positive lens, in the United States, in Canada, and in Mexico. And I think that's what you've seen over the last few weeks as you see Ecuador fans celebrating across the country, but especially here in the Northeast with the massive populations. And that become a point for people who don't know about that community to feel pride that they're in New Jersey, that they're a part of that in some small way, or for the SEC bros to be like, oh, that's cool. Right. And now all of a sudden that becomes a whole new world. And the Egyptian fans had their opportunity. Morocco fans have done. I was out there in 2022 with Morocco fans when obviously they made it to the semifinal. And I think you're going to see a lot of it across the country. The Bosnia fans, I think, have been one of the huge winners, and they're talking about, taking over San Francisco and coming into this game, and they have put on a show, and they've been a huge thing. The Netherlands fans in Kansas City, of course, but so that's that mix where Netherlands fans, I think a lot of them have traveled in for it, and then a lot do live here. And for some of these fan bases, it really is people who already live here, a chance to see their national team for the first time, like Valère talked about with Iraq. So it was an epic night. Really glad I was out there for that one. I would be surprised if Egypt goes much further with the way they played soccer last night.
They were pretty terrible.
Yeah, and it's great to be amongst fans when that happens, where they're just so angry. And everyone, the managers have fault all the time, but then they got cheated by the ref. But it's like, how do you get cheated by the ref if you keep saying you've played like shit and there's no logic to it? It's just such a pure way to watch the game.
I was a little bit envious of you yesterday because you went.
Always be envious.
Yeah, I should always be envious. You go to Harlem.
I went to Little Senegal as well for that game.
To Little Senegal to watch one game, and then you go to Steinway, which is just that. Steinway is just an incredible place.
Did he not invite you?
He did.
Okay.
He did.
And he turned it down.
I'm being pulled apart by various invitations.
He's just so popular.
He's got so many plans.
But then I'm looking through Instagram to see people celebrating, and I see your video, and I just
that was at
myself,
halftime, by the way.
Yeah.
The first video I posted was fireworks going off at halftime.
That's amazing. I just thought I made a mistake. I should have been on Steinway.
Well, everyone's invited next time, and there is so many places, I think, across the country to watch these games. And I will say, from my experience, I try not to be an interloper and take up the space, but I do find people really want to welcome people into their spaces. And I think for a lot of people, it's a chance for them to share. So if you live anywhere, I think across North America for sure. I think probably in Europe and parts of Asia as well, maybe Australia, where there are other communities. Look up a restaurant, give them a call and say, hey, is there space? And you can go to a Colombian restaurant and have the time of your life. You can go to a Portuguese restaurant, have the time of your life, learn something about some new people, maybe find a new restaurant that you're going to go back to over and over and over and over again, because I just love it, the way Egyptians grill fish. So I've been going now for the last 6 years after I went to go watch an AFCON game in 2018 or whatever it was. All right, let's dig into the games, and we'll start there. Belgium wins the group with their result. Belgium, a 5-1 win over New Zealand. They, we think, will face either South Korea, Senegal, or potentially Algeria. So Belgium finishes on 5 points. They finish undefeated after what has been a very frustrating group stage for them. Egypt finishes in second on 5 points. Egypt, as I said, on 4 points, had clinched qualification at a minimum as a third-place team before they even stepped on the field against Iran. Iran now plays the waiting game. So they have to sit and watch TV. Their 0 goal differential could be their saving grace after they tie all 3 games. And then New Zealand, after what had been an overly strong performance, I think, to open, or at least a positive one for them based off their history, they get sort of the reality check in the 5-1 loss against Belgium. What do you make of sort of the way this group played out?
I was surprised that Belgium is not in that group of favorites that I was talking about, but it's a team that we all expected to play well, and we all expected Jeremy Doku to sort of take a bow at this stage and become a household name, and that hasn't happened for a variety of reasons. They just overwhelmed New Zealand in terms of the amount of talent they could put on the field. And New Zealand did themselves no favors. The first Belgium goal was on a set piece. If you're New Zealand, you cannot be giving up set piece goals if you want to hang in and end up with a low-scoring draw, which was really the only thing on the table for them. Not a particularly convincing win. That said, I thought they were a little more dynamic in the final third, Belgium were, than they had been against Iran and Egypt. I do wonder, though, if that's just going into this game and knowing that New Zealand has no way to threaten even on the counter.
Yeah, I thought that they were starting to put things together, and this was the kind of game that Belgium really needed before going into the knockout stages. One that would give them a little bit of confidence, because they were clearly deflated after the first 2 games. Yeah. There seemed to be no way through in the attacking third. So in terms of the game itself, it was just an imbalance of talent. Let's just put it that way. I don't think it was any more than that. It was almost impossible for New Zealand to come out of their half. They were so deep. The press was effective from Belgium. Their rest defense, rest, capital, uppercase R. And then the guys who were supposed to carve up space in what is essentially a very deep block, were able to do that. I don't think Doku has stood out in any way, but he always magnetized 2 players. Yeah. So that always opened up spaces for other guys. Yeah. I thought the Catalere was good in this game, and I criticized him yesterday. I criticized Rudy Garcia for not using him properly. So I think that we saw a little bit of what Belgium can do, and I'm sure that it will set off some alarms in other teams' heads that, people have been dismissive of the Belgians, including me after their first 2 performances, but they have more than enough arguments to make a deep run in this competition.
Yeah, I think it's double-sided, though, where it's like you're capable of a performance like this, so then therefore the disappointment of what you've done over the first 2 games is maybe magnified. Yeah. And the question marks still stand, which is this a team that can elevate themselves? And with the run that they'll potentially have coming into this, they're going to play a third-place team. They will play the winner of U.S., Bosnia, and Herzegovina. They will have more possession in all of these games that they play. They will be the favorites in all these games that they play. It feels like they're worse in some of those settings than they are against the ball and against the game, and that's still what's going to be asked of them. There was an epic moment at some point in the second half here where Elijah Just scored again. Yeah. Will end up being the Golden Boot winner of this World Cup. Yeah, right. Not getting out of the group stage. And in that moment, Egypt moved to first place on goal differential while playing against the ball like trash against Iran. And then 90 seconds later, Lukaku scores to answer the goal, and Belgium moves back into first place. And those are like the wild moments of you play the final group stage game simultaneous and the potential for it to move back and forth. And I think the Egyptian messaging maybe didn't get through on the second goal, and it felt like the players played it out assuming they were through in first place. I think in the end, an Egyptian national team that's never won a World Cup game and never been out of the group stage, they didn't really care.
Yeah.
They would take first or second, and Australia in second place is not the worst case scenario for them either. But Egypt totally defended out the last 25 minutes. They put on a ton of pressure to open the second half. Omar Marmoush came off the bench, so that meant Salah had to go out because the two of them can't play together because they hate each other. But then the pressure started to come. Zico was very good in this game for Egypt. Egypt started to apply the pressure. And then around the 65th, when these goals happened, they turned off and they like totally sat in and defended. And I think the message came across of like, at 1-1, we win the group. And I don't know that the second message came across fully until maybe it was too late. And then they had no subs. Guys were pulling up with like cramps, and I just think at that point Egypt couldn't get out of their half.
They were also playing against a desperate Iran because Iran were chasing the win, and that changes the dynamic of the game. I do want to mention just two things very quickly. One of them you just touched on. The first one is Kevin De Bruyne becomes the first Belgian to score in 3 different World Cups, and that was a really well-taken shot, by the way. It was old school Kevin De Bruyne, and we've seen him in flashes. The other one is we can't just paper over Elijah Just, by the way, because the 3 goals that he does score are 3 excellent goals. Yeah. He plays for Motherwell, the first Motherwell player to score in the World Cup. And I'm
a huge Motherwell
fan.
But this is a guy I'd never heard of.
Coming
for
into
sure,
this
right.
World Cup. This is a World Cup flash.
And I'm a soccer sicko like you guys are. I was impressed with his movement, his technique, his shooting with both feet, and I think it's reasonable to argue that this guy will not be staying at Motherwell after this tournament. He's 26.
He's in his prime. Move to Aberdeen.
He will be out of the Scottish Premiership, I think.
Oh, wow. Big. Him and Pico Lopez making moves
he'll go to Leeds or something like that. I've called it here.
Okay.
Take your favorite player's place there, Brendan Harrison.
Nice. And of course, then you get Iran scores. They score in the 93rd minute. He wheels away to the bench, jersey off, got to do it. Got to take your jersey off. You just scored a goal to put your team through to the World Cup knockouts, got to do it. Then the extra layer is the meme sunglasses with the white
that was fantastic.
Yeah, so then someone brings that over. So puts his jersey on, does a whole second celebration. You're fully committed now. Mm-hmm. Now, VAR, baby. VAR is coming for your goal celebrations. Hide your kids, hide your wives, because they're coming for you. And all of a sudden, they go to VAR, and everyone is like shocked. And I got to tell you, there's only literally, this is my favorite call for referees in soccer. It is the only call in soccer for a referee that I actually care about, because there's no number 2 on this list, because referees can go get lost. He is offside because what is the offside rule? That there are 2 players between the attacking player and the goal. And everyone forgets that because they say there's 1 player because they assume the goalkeeper is always behind the play. And it happens once every 4 years, it feels like, where if the goalkeeper comes out of play, either the ball or 2 defenders has to be between the attacker and the goal line. And so on this goal, the goalkeeper comes off his line to attack the ball. He has now surpassed the player. So now 2 Egyptian defenders have to be behind the play. One of them was 1 centimeter away. He ends up being offside. There is offside technology. So it's very clear he's offside because there's like a whole machine that builds a line. And everyone's like, centimeters away. VAR has robbed us once again. And it's like, yeah, I guess if they'd called it right on the field, then VAR wouldn't have robbed us, but that's what ends up happening. Iran hits the post again, and they end up tying 1-1.
Yeah, it was brutal. I felt bad for the Iranian fans and the players because they kind of deserved the win, but the rule is the rule, and people had clamored for instant replay. This was before we had the term VAR. People had clamored for instant replay in this sport of ours for literal decades, and now they have it. And of course, they hate it because this is against the spirit of the game and blah, blah, blah.
And they don't know the rules very often.
You're right. And it's just, look, man, the rules, like this one is pretty clear. There's no interpretation on it. He was offside, and it was by a pinky toe, and that sucks. And if I was, that happened to my team, I would be
heartbreaking.
Yeah. But he's offside.
Yeah.
It's black and white. It's like the one thing in the game that is black and white.
That's the term. It's like one of the only things that is black and white in this game. And of course, it's frustrating. But it also reminds me of something that I said yesterday, and I actually name-checked you on this. we're seeing a lot more crossing in this tournament, or goals from crosses, because of the chaos that a lot of these crosses create. And you mentioned as well that you don't see these situations, this sort of offside call very often.
Yeah.
You tend to see them in tournaments like this because a lot of these players don't play together very often. And so it's more likely that you're going to see the chaos that leads to a call like this. And that's another reason why people aren't not necessarily
It doesn't
familiar with the
happen as
rule.
often, yeah.
Right. So this is, I love tournaments, and I love tournaments because of these situations. I obviously don't want to be on the side of Iran getting a goal chalked off.
I also think maybe if we watched more Al-Ahly games, we'd see it more often because Mustafa Shobair is clearly horrendous at coming off his line. He got gifted a foul call earlier in the game.
Yes, he did.
He conceded. He helped concede, I think, the penalty because coming out and then the chaos of that called. He did save the penalty from Taremi, and
Really bad penalty.
a really bad penalty. And I will say, if you watch back the eventually recalled goal celebration, the whole team's in a pile. Taremi's off to the side on his knees, face down on the ground, pounding the ground. I think he's crying in that moment. I think the relief he felt that they were through was so massive. In the post-game comments, and this is not new, he talked about the issues that they've had with travel. And I think the phrase he used was disgusting. Like, the organization is disgusting. I believe many of the operational parts of the Iranian FA still don't have visas to travel. So when they traveled to Seattle, where they were given an extra day to be there, which is the normal amount of 2 days before, and then they travel out after the game, I don't think they had the full staff to help them sort of manage everything. And that puts even more load and pressure on the players. Right now, Iran sits as a third place team. So there's two things to talk about. One is that has them playing Switzerland and Vancouver. And for all of the conversation that obviously is going to be had about Iran playing the World Cup in the United States while the two countries are at war, Iran has had more trouble getting into Canada over the last 8 years than getting into the United States. Iran was supposed to play a pre-World Cup friendly in 2022 that the Canadian FA organized, Canadian Soccer Association, and it was canceled like 36 hours before the game over pure riots from Canadians because the Iranian guard shot down a commercial plane with many Canadian citizens on it, has refused to apologize or take blame for it. So we saw it with the FIFA Congress. The Iranian delegates were not allowed in the country because they had connections in the past to the Iranian National Guard. I don't know what this means, is what I'm saying. And it's a conversation we haven't had because Iran wasn't slated to play in Canada. And I don't think it was a coincidence that Iran wasn't slated to play in Canada with the way you could move teams around. They ended up in Tijuana, where they're base camped. I have no idea what would happen if they end up going to Vancouver. The second thing is they're a sixth place team on 3 points with 0 goal differential. They are riding the line coming into this final day. Croatia already on 3 points. Algeria already on 3 points. The two of them, if they didn't lose by the right result or get a result, would knock them down. And DR Congo sits on 1 point with a game against Uzbekistan.
Yeah, it's squeaky bum time for Iran. Just one result goes their way, and they're probably through. But all three of the teams that Dave just mentioned, you kind of expect them to get the result they need in this final group stage game.
Yeah, I'd like to see them make it through, exactly because of all those obstacles that they faced. And also, I feel like for the most part, when the players have faced the press and have been challenged with questions or by questions, I've liked their answers. They've obviously walked, a line, but I don't know. You feel sympathy for these players who are caught in a terrible situation and are suffering the consequences of that situation. So when you have those kind of circumstances, I will root for you.
Yeah, and I, like I talked about with the fans, it's been a rallying point for Iranians all over the world. Yeah. It is the one unifying thing between beliefs in different government systems and all of that is this team. And I think they've grinded their way out. And we talked about it a couple of days ago. Taremi's speech to the team in the locker room before the Belgium game of like, they think they're better than you. They might be better than you. Like, run your hearts out. I think we've seen that in the 3 games. There's not that maybe final third quality to get them over the top. But I think we've seen that in a lot of it. And now they will sit and watch television with all of us today and hope that it ends in a positive way. Part of the reason that this Egyptian game was a little bit maybe less open than we expected was because of the results in Group H right before them. So we end up getting a Cape Verde, Saudi Arabia 0-0 draw, and Spain knocks off Uruguay 1-0. So Cape Verde advances to the knockout stage in their first ever World Cup. They are the smallest nation to ever qualify for the World Cup knockout stage after finishing second. And their reward is they get to face the World Cup holders right now in Leo Messi in Argentina in the round of 32. They're the first debutant to advance from the group stage in the World Cup since Slovakia in 2010. They're the first African team to do so since Ghana in 2006. It is going to be a really strong World Cup overall for CAF. It feels like a lot of the African teams are going to go through. Eric, you not Cape Verdean, but you, of course, your family's from Angola originally, grew up in Portugal. A lot of these players and families are either raised in or born in Cape Verde, raised in Portugal, other way around, connected to both. It feels like a really big moment for this country.
It's a great story, and it gives Portugal a team to root for if things don't go well. If things don't go well for Portugal, you know. What I really like about the Cape Verde story is that so often we see these teams.
By the way, you can call them Cabo.
Cabo Verde.
Yeah, you can say it correctly.
It's hard. It's hard for me to say Cape Verde. By the way,
so before you
Cape
get into
Verde,
this,
by the way.
before you get into this, give us the different pronunciations of Cape Verde, because I, like all stupid Americans, I went into this.
Don't say the E.
Yeah, so I went into this tournament thinking it was Cape Verde, and that is incorrect.
No, it's Cape Verde.
So the Portuguese pronunciation is
Cabo Verde.
The Spanish pronunciation is
I don't know.
Cape Verde.
Okay, Cape Verde.
Yeah.
And then the incorrect English pronunciation
Should be Cape Verde as well.
Okay,
Yeah.
the correct English pronunciation is
Cape Verde.
okay. All right.
Which
Yeah.
I thought
Don't say the E
as
ever.
well. Don't say Cape Verde, but
Yeah.
but I wasn't completely aware of that either because I've always called them Cabo
Cabo.
Verde. But the point that I was going to make is that historically you've had European superpowers pillage these African nations for talent.
Yeah.
And here you have a team that was essentially a non-factor for decades, forever in African football. And what do? They start reaching out to the diaspora, which have not only gone to Portugal, but Belgium and France, Ireland as well.
The U.S.
In this case, U.S. I didn't realize how much of a Cape Verdean community there was in the United States.
When MLS started 30 years ago, the Revs went out of their way to sign a bunch of Cape Verde players because the population south of Boston, Foxborough, all the way down to like
Providence.
Providence is like filled. And if you want some really good Cape Verde food, go to Providence.
Yeah, and they've been great fans in this World Cup. Everybody's talked about the Scots, and they've mentioned other nations as well, but they've been really well supported. But the idea that you can go out, reach out to the diaspora, and so often, you know, you have people, kids and families, they're grown-ups, but you have people who are born in other countries who feel connected to the heritage of their parents, to the countries of their parents, without even very often setting foot in those countries. My mother is Angolan. I've never been to Angola because, for the most part, during my life, they've been in a civil war. And my father was like, you're not going there. But I feel an attachment to Angola because even though I grew up in Portugal, so much of how we celebrated had that touch of Angola in there. I've digressed a bit, but I just think it's a wonderful story that you can reach out to this community. You have players who want to represent the countries of their parents and do it with pride. And then to achieve this, it's unbelievable.
And one of the things I think has to be stated, because I think it's overstated in the wrong direction, is, the 48-team World Cup allows this. More teams get in. There's more opportunity. They won a qualifying group with Cameroon by 4 points. They went to a quarterfinal at AFCON. Previously, they've gone to a quarterfinal at AFCON as well. They've come in. They've taken results from Saudi Arabia, Uruguay, and Spain. All three of those countries were at the last World Cup. Yeah. So this wasn't like, we're minnow feeding and we're stealing points off of a different format. And they didn't qualify as a third-place team. Like, everything about what they've accomplished is legitimately, this is what a national team does.
Yeah, it also shows you how much quality there is around the world playing in lower divisions. Yeah. Because a lot of these guys are playing in lower divisions, but they are quality players. The thing that has stood out to me about Cabo Verde the most, perhaps, is not how defensively solid and disciplined that they've been, but their ability with the ball, even when facing really intense pressure. That was the case against Spain. We saw it again in their second game. Who was their second
Uruguay.
game? Against Uruguay, especially in the second half. I'm telling you, each game is blended into another. But then against Saudi Arabia in the second half, they took it to the Saudis.
They should have scored.
They should have
That's
scored.
the one
Yeah.
thing.
Poor
that kills
decision
me.
making in the attacking
They should
third,
have
no
won
doubt
I
about
mean,
it.
they
1-0.
had that one chance very late on. That
They
I
had
thought
two
were gonna
pullbacks
score.
late on
Yeah.
that went wide. They had opportunities to seal this themselves. It was a great moment in the end, them standing on the field watching the end of the other game on their phones, celebrating, but it felt like it was there for them to get the goal. It wouldn't have changed where they finished.
It wouldn't have. It would have been a wonderful moment, though. But you could also see, like, this is a really smart team. They understand the geometry of chance creation in a modern game. Like, they weren't just hit and hope and try to get into the channels. It's like, no, once they got on the ball, they were crafting stuff against, I mean, let's be fair, Saudi Arabia is really bad. Yeah. This is one of the worst teams at the World Cup. And, okay, you have to make them look bad. You have to make them eat that. And they did everything but the final touch. It was impressive. Even though it was 0-0 and I think that's a little disappointing. It was still impressive.
So Vozinha is the third goalkeeper to keep multiple World Cup clean sheets after turning 40. The list he joins is Dino Zoff and Peter Shilton. Wow. Never a bad list to be on.
I don't know the second guy.
Yeah, never a bad list to be on as a goalkeeper around the world. And now they will move on to the next round, and they will play Argentina. And I assume, based off the opening game against Spain, they won't be faced. They've been in these matchups with huge teams. They've been with their back against the wall. And one of the really special parts about the talent base or this group is they're all experienced. These are all guys in their 30s mainly who are getting minutes, 32, 35. Jamiro Montero, who we've watched for a while, has played phenomenal so far in this World Cup. And so they know this is a big opportunity for them, but it feels like they really have a decent leveling of what's at stake. On the other side, Uruguay went into this game with an opportunity to save their World Cup. We talked for a long time yesterday about Marcelo Bielsa and the culture in this team, the bust-ups that we thought occurred. And we will now get official confirmation very quickly from 37 different sources about what happened and what didn't. And Spain ends up taking this game 1-0 to win the group, and Uruguay end up getting knocked out. They're the first team ever to win a World Cup and then fail to get out of the group stage in successive tournaments later on as they failed to get out in 2022. We talked about it for a while yesterday, but this Uruguay team, what do you make of what happened and how it ended?
Uruguay, their whole thing is that they're always going to be maximally effortful, right? You're never going to have that deficit.
Effort maxing.
Yeah,
It's like a really big
effort
thing with the
maxing
kids.
and try hard mogging. Yeah. And I think that adding Bielsa on top of that ended up being kind of like a ridiculous decision because Bielsa's thing is he needs complete buy-in and you run as hard as you can. It's like, okay, Uruguay already do that. Get someone who could maybe make them a little less linear in their approach. And to be fair to Bielsa, there's not a guy like that really in this Ecuador pool, right? There's no one who's Uruguay pool. There's no one who's going to change the pace of play and add a little. So it was just one thing piled on top of another and piled on top of another. And I think that maybe that irritated the player pool and it accentuated the bad parts of the player pool as much as it accentuated the good parts of the player pool. And so you ended up with this kind of unhealthy mix of the Uruguay culture when it comes to these tournaments and then Bielsa's cult of personality around that and what he expects from his players. And it was a disaster, and it made for an unwatchable soccer game. And unfortunately, a couple of Spain's players got hurt, and hopefully it's just the two, just Pino and Inaki Williams, because or Nico Williams rather, if it's more than that, then Spain's in a little bit of trouble.
Augustine Canobio picks up the red card in the closing 5-7 minutes.
A worse challenge than the Qatari guy on Ismail Kone. No joke. It was like that was a leg breaker.
And Canobio, I think, has been arguably their best player over the 2.5 games because on the scale of we'll run through a wall, we'll run through a titanium wall, and everyone else was on brick wall level.
Yeah.
So maybe he's one of the guys fully bought in. And then post game, Bielsa in the post-game press or on-field flash interview, I guess the PR officer was trying to talk to him while he was waiting for it, and the mic was already hot. The interviewer was already standing there, and he starts yelling at the press officer to give him a moment, and just fully out of control. And listen, it's an emotional sport. This is an emotional moment. Like, I don't think any of that by itself stands out, except for the run-up to it, his history as a person, and just the reality we all know, which is when it goes wrong with Bielsa, it is a nuclear meltdown internally, and you just felt it happening.
I did think that his post-match press conference, I'm trying to find the right word. Gracious is not it. But he basically admitted that he offered little, if nothing,
Right.
To Uruguay during his stint with the team. I do want to touch on something that Matt said before. In modern football, I think one of the things that we're seeing more and more, or we're seeing less and less of, are those nations that have a quite rigid identity to their football.
Yeah.
Uruguay has been one of those.
It's
a globalization of every facet of the game. Uruguay was one of the remaining pillars of this defensive, counterattacking, gritty style. They bring in a guy who wants to use that grit, but in order to assemble or to inculcate his own system. And it failed, because when it comes to homogeneous groups of players, Uruguay, Argentina, and I can think of very few that are similar around the world.
Where everyone plays on the same brain.
They play the same type of
I think
football.
Spain would be
and one, two. But even Spanish football has changed a little bit over the last couple of decades. They used to be a lot more direct in their approach.
Yeah.
So when you have a manager who comes in and throws a wrench in the works and then has that personality, things are bound to go wrong, and this is exactly what happened. I do have to say about this game, everybody's been talking about how it was an ugly game. It was Uruguay's best performance of the tournament by far. That says a lot about what their first two performances were like. But I had said, it was Sanabria, the left back, from RSL.
Yeah.
I had said to the guys I was watching the game with, and they made fun of me, that very often American players who represent the U.S. and ply their trade in MLS, they get pilloried for being MLS players. And then we see a performance from an MLS-based player against one of the best players in the world, and you're like, well, look at that. There are quality players, whether defensive or attacking players, who show up in the big stage who represent Major League Soccer. And I thought Sanabria was very good in that first half.
I thought he was their best player in this tournament.
Potentially. I think Canobio was the other guy. But I thought their defensive setup was very good. They were doing this hybrid of man marking throughout the field when they could press. But in the beginning, they couldn't press. And so they were really tight. They were double teaming Lamine Yamal, who I think is definitely feeling the effects of that hamstring issue. He doesn't trust himself to be explosive. He's worried about getting injured. So I do feel like there was a little bit of the Bielcista style in that game, and there was a little bit of the Garra Charrua. There was a mix, and that made life very difficult for the Spanish. And if I am Cape Verde now looking forward to this game, I take what I learned about my game against Spain and what I saw worked from Uruguay against Spain to try and take that to Argentina. Right? So it's the physicality, the defensive presence, but also the ability to sometimes pressure these teams on man marking. That was kind of like a weird connection that I made during that game.
So I want us to move on. Because
and teams that play against Spain, by the way, as well. Sorry. Yeah.
So one, Muslera, the huge mistake, his second mistake of the World Cup. He's been making mistakes for 14 years.
Five in World Cups.
Yeah, he's been making the mistakes for 14 years. He somehow hang on at Galatasaray for way longer than you would have thought. He then ends up in Argentina. But I could talk about Uruguay for 2 hours because it's amazing. It's 1.3 million people. They've won the World Cup twice.
It's more than that, but it's
3.1 million. It's
it's around 4 million.
I'm dyslexic on one of those two numbers, but I'm in the ballpark. They've won the World Cup twice, obviously a long time ago. They won the Olympics when it was the World Championship before that. They actually won this tournament that I didn't even know about in the 1970s, where it was like every World Cup winner and Olympic winner all came to a tournament in Uruguay and played. I don't know that people sent their first team, and FIFA does allow them to choose it as a world championship, so they technically have 5. I grew up at a time when it dipped down with Uruguay, and it was like, yeah, here's the reality. The game has become bigger. There's more money in it. You're a small country. You're not going to get there. And then Tabarez comes back in, and Diego Forlan does what he does post-Recoba in 2010, and the game comes back, and now it's Cavani, and it's world-class players, Diego Godin, up the spine.
It was a golden generation. You can actually call that a golden generation.
Now, well, what's interesting is Fede Valverde is a world-class player. So for a country of that size, and Jose Jimenez is as well, they are still, even though that was a golden generation, they are still producing players. And I think you should have always expected a dip. And so the Bielsa move kind of feels a little desperate of like, how do we rearrange things while we know we're not good enough? But then on the flip side, there is an opportunity missed here because you do have world-class talent in this group that should be able to perform better than what they did. And I don't know how to answer the question for Uruguay of like, there are going to be times when you don't have a goalkeeper besides Muslera because you're a small country and you don't have elite players and depth across things.
But they have a very good goalkeeper in Sergio Rochet. I don't understand that whole decision.
But my point is across the field, that's going to happen to this country because there's not enough of population. But at the same time, look at the groups that are going through to the knockout rounds. Uruguay has more talent than most of them.
They do, but the talent is concentrated in a couple of spots, and specifically the lack of a orchestrator in central midfield.
And Darius Ganta's injuries.
Betancourt and Valverde, like they're really good players, but these guys, they don't have skill sets that sort of amplify each other. They overlap almost completely.
Yeah, that's a good point. I thought Betancourt was very good yesterday.
I thought he was good, but they need someone who could unlock, and they didn't have that.
And Darius Ganta is the one who's been that a little bit off and on. He's been hurt all tournament. Jose Jimenez was hurt all tournament. I wasn't sure. Ronald Araujo also hurt all tournament. I mean, I just named an Atletico Madrid captain and a Barcelona player that didn't appear.
And a top playmaker for Flamengo as well.
But we're not going to talk about Spain that much because we're going to talk about Spain, I think, a lot over the next few weeks. But they end up having a really strong group stage. They didn't concede the entire group stage.
But they have issues.
Inaki Williams coming back would be big. They do have some issues. And I do think if you are a team outside of the top 4, I think if you look at the top 4 and say, who do I want to end up in a quadrant with? I actually think Spain would be your pick because Spain will make the game hard on themselves. They will make the game frustrating for themselves. And that is a way to hang in there, different than what you have to do against France and Argentina.
By the way, my wires crossed before. What I wanted to say, I went Cape Verde, Argentina.
We're coming back. No, we're going to move on.
Let me just say this. What I'm saying is, I think that there is very much a game plan there against the Spanish going forward, based on what people saw from Uruguay. That was the point.
Well, France
kick them.
France wins 4-1 against Norway in a game in which it was very clear that Norway didn't have idea of trying to go out and win. And then Senegal had a big task ahead of them, but a clear task ahead of them coming into this group. They sat on 0 points. They sat with a -2 goal differential. They needed to overturn that goal differential. They needed to pick up 3 points to put themselves in the 3rd place advancement conversation. And they had to do so against an Iraq team that came in with such a deep goal differential, it felt unlikely that they would be able to advance. Senegal ends up scoring in the 4th minute of this one. Iraq picks up a red card about 6 minutes later, and it was open game. Now, it took Senegal a really long time to start to break through. They played like they have for 2 games with a really slow tempo and refused to break lines and be aggressive, especially inside near the box. And then Pape Gueye decided, I could just shoot from wherever I want.
His life.
So that might open things up. And then Senegal started to pour it on. The only thing that didn't happen in this game was that Sadio Mane did not score. Literally everything else for Senegal went right. They end up winning 5-0. It pushes them way up in the standings. They have now officially clinched their spot as a 3rd place team that will move on. Most likely, they will play the winner of Group L. So they'll probably end up in a spot against either England, Ghana, or Croatia in the next round. I talked about it on the show. I thought Nicky Jackson had struggled.
He gets replaced.
Ismail Sarr gets in the game, but Sarr doesn't score from that position. But it was a real huge relief for Senegal, the way they put the goals together in this game.
He stretched the field, which he was doing on the right when Jackson was there. And I think Jackson, while he struggled in front of goal, his hold-up play was okay.
I thought he was okay.
Especially against France, I thought he stood out. I really like seeing Ibrahim Mbaye in the starting lineup because he's been the flashiest of the players, but he had the worst game out of the three.
But
Perhaps
he tries stuff.
He does try stuff, but he frustrated players like Ismail Assar who were open in the box, and he's trying an extra step over. I like what I saw from Senegal in the second half. I tweeted out in the first half that Senegal, deceive to flatter, flatter to deceive.
Yeah.
Because once again, I thought, wow, they're not showing the potential that they have. And yet in the second half, they completely changed the game. Of course, once Iraq make that mistake on the second goal, the guy tries a sombrero in front of his 18-yard box. And then the best part...
turns around and looks at the defender and goes, you didn't close him down?
I've never related to a player so much in my entire life as in that moment. After that, it was all downhill, right? Because that deflated Iraq, and I thought they played quite well a man down and actually tried to attack at times. But once that second goal goes in, it's going to be an avalanche.
What do you make of Norway rotating the full lineup for the game against France?
It was a little bit cowardly, to be honest with you, but because they had the chance. This wasn't the U.S. rotating the lineup against Turkey when the U.S. had already clinched the group. It was Norway could have won and could have topped the group. But at the same time, I kind of get it because the goal is just to get into the knockout rounds and give yourself the best chance at advancing, and resting those guys who are not used to playing in any kind of weather was probably the right call. And they went out there, and I thought Norway played really well. Obviously, the goalkeeper, not so much. And look, they don't have a championship caliber defense, but guys like Oscar Bob coming in and really the entire midfield looking comfortable, creating chances against that France back line, it impressed me. I don't think the final scoreline was a reflection of anything other than France having Mbappe and Dembele, who are two of like the four best players in the world.
Do you want to take your moment to apologize to Patrick
Yes,
Berg?
not apologize.
Okay, you got to be quick on it.
Yeah.
The
Well,
Berg
I also want to
family's
say
leaving.
something. The what?
The Berg's family leaving.
I called Sander Berger a bad player yesterday. I was trying to be economical with my words to get through the point quickly, and I don't think anybody should ever do that about a professional player. They're a professional for a reason. Especially not somebody who's not a professional player.
Except for Alvis Powell. That guy's really bad at soccer.
He has his games. But what I was trying to say is that players like Sander Berge or Frederick Ausnes, who I really like, are limited in what they can do. So they limit what a Norway can do. I did think it was interesting that his replacement, Berg, who plays for Bodo Glimt, is a superior player, in my opinion. He doesn't have the same stature, and I think that's why he's been relegated to a substitute. But to your point about Norway playing well, I think they did in moments. Oscar Bob was really, really good. We know how talented he is. Sheldrup was also good, so the two wingers. But I think that had a lot to do with France allowing them to play, because France were in first gear very much like they were in the first half against Senegal in their opening game. So I don't think there's much about Norway that we can take away from this game. I do think there was a little bit of a cowardly aspect to it, but psychologically too, Solbakken may have thought, if I play all my starters in this
We
game
lose 5-1.
and we get trounced, psychologically we're done in the knockouts.
We'll see what happens in the next round, and we'll see what the effect was. I actually kind of respect the self-awareness to say, my guys can't do this 5 times. And beating France at a World Cup is going to be the toughest thing the Norwegian national team as a group ever does together. So if I have that bullet in the chamber, why don't I save it for a knockout round? And I think that's kind of the acknowledgement they made. Now, if they had won, they would have played Sweden in the round of 32. 1, vibes would have been high. 2, it makes it a more winnable game. So maybe you wouldn't need the same level of effort, and maybe you could have a little bit more gas that you could spend on that France game. But
they're locked in. They're locked in for Cote d'Ivoire.
Yeah, and Erling Haaland said we're going to lose this game. France is going to win the World Cup. So it's got kind of hard to turn around from that and be like, let's go out and beat them. And so I think in the end, if Norway knocks off Ivory Coast, they'll be in a place where you'll say it was the right decision to understand your group, understand their energy levels, understand what you've asked of them. And there are limitations to this group. They don't have the depth. So it wasn't a situation like France where it's like, okay, well, if Dembele goes out there, he has a great game, but also can't go the next game, we'll just start Barcola.
Right.
They don't have that. Right. So you only have the pieces you have.
They only have that at one spot, right wing, where if, like, Oscar Bob, in my opinion,
don't even get me started.
Should start.
The Oscar Bob and Nusa combined led UEFA in duels won for wingers, and they have Erling Haaland who plays in the middle, and Oscar Bob started one game in the group stage, and it was the game that they gave up.
And it has everything to do with shoehorning Sorloth into the team.
Okay, so that's the end of the group stage for today. As you said, Norway will go on to play Ivory Coast. France will go on to play Sweden. That game will be in New Jersey. So for France, they stay in Boston. They stay in the Northeast, but they are still lined up for a July 4th Philadelphia matchup against Germany.
Oh, just discounting Paraguay like that. Okay.
I absolutely am. I will do so again if you need me to. So just let me know.
Germany's look terrible, but okay.
I think Paraguay has looked terrible, but okay. Let's move into the day to come. Some huge matchups, and we close out the group stage. So it all starts 5 p.m. Eastern time on the East Coast. It moves down into the Southeast with the Colombia, Portugal, DR Congo, Uzbekistan games. And then we finish out the night with Algeria versus Austria and Jordan against Argentina. Let's start in Group L action then. Reece James will miss, we believe, 2 straight games for England. If you're going to have to miss games, it's probably best to do it in the third group stage game against a Panamanian team that's already eliminated, although there is still work for England to do to try and clinch their spot in their quadrant as a seeded team coming into it. And of course, it has been a position that has brought a ton of conversation for the last 2 months with Trent Alexander-Arnold and all the other options and Livramento's injury at that right back spot for England. I think it's something we'll probably talk about more going into the knockout rounds with the matchups that they have. And then on the flip side for Croatia versus Ghana, Croatia have not clinched their spot yet as a third place team because of their goal differential. Could get worse. So they go into this game. Ghana has clinched their spot, but they don't know where they stand. All 3 of these teams could end up first in this group. Any of these 3 teams could end up third. Croatia is the only one who could get eliminated. What do you make, maybe, Doyle, of how this all plays out together?
I think we're kind of... The sense I get from people talking about this group is everybody's penciling in Croatia for a win or at least a draw against Ghana. And I don't think that's the right way to look at this. This is not Croatia of 2022, let alone 2018. They don't have the same sort of pop in attack, and they don't have the same sort of control through midfield. And we've seen Ghana... Look, I don't love Carlos Queiroz, but he knows how to build a defense.
He does.
Of course he does.
Sentimentally, but I agree with you.
He's been watching Iran games for 12
years. As a Metro Stars fan,
right.
Sentimentally, I feel a different way about
what
Carlos
about for U.S.
Queiroz?
soccer youth development?
Yeah, right. So it would not shock me at all if Ghana won this game and Croatia ended up on the outside looking in, because they know what they're about.
Yeah. This Ghanaian team, I thought they sat in fairly comfortably against England. They had their chance on the break. They should have had a penalty kick that didn't get called. Semenyo, to me, is one of the elite players on the planet. Anytime you can get him a little bit of space, and even without it.
I mean, if I told you this ended 2-0 to Ghana with Semenyo with 2 40-yard runs that,
At the same time...
I'd be a little surprised.
At the same time, Panama should have beaten them in the first game.
They should have.
Without Coco Carrasquilla.
And they should have beaten Croatia, too.
So the 2 extremes there, though, of, yes, I wouldn't be shocked if Ghana beats Croatia, but I also thought Ghana should lose to a team that's eliminated from the World Cup.
And Ghana should have beat England.
Yes, fair. So it's all chaos.
Right.
Which goes to my last point, which is, I would assume, based off me listening to a couple British people on podcasts over the last day or two, that everyone thinks Panama's dead in the water. Panama's never earned a point at the World Cup. They feel heartbroken by what's happened over the first 2 games. They've deserved points, at least from both games. You could argue they should have won both games, at least one of them. I think Thomas Christensen puts out his best team that's available to him. He has nothing to gain by not. They are one of the older teams at the World Cup as well. There's not a lot of young players to blood in there. And if Reece James is out, the 2 best attacking pieces in this team are Joel Barcenas and Jose Luis Rodriguez. And I think they've both looked really bright in those wide attacking spots. And that is an area that they can get after. And so I'm seeing England fans. I'm yelling Los Caballeros at them. I'm ready for the vibes here. I think 1-1 Panama England draw, and I think Ghana wins 2-1.
I don't see either of those games going that way. I think, romantically, I'd love to see that happen, but I don't think it's going to happen. I think England are going to demolish Panama because while they are buoyed by the fact that they should have gotten points in those previous 2 games, there's just too much talent. It's going to be a Belgium-Iran situation as I see it. The Ghana-Croatia game will be a lot closer. Interestingly, I was just looking at Livakovic's stats against Panama. It says that he only made 1 save.
And it was the best save of the tournament?
I remember him standing on his head in that game. Maybe he sort of had to snuff out plays, come off his line real quick, and they weren't counted as saves. But I looked at that Croatia team, and I completely agree with you. They are a far cry from the teams of the past. And a guy like Petr Susic, who I love, is one of my favorite players in Serie A, hasn't shown up. I think our boy from FC Dallas, Petar Musa, lost an opportunity to start this 3rd game because Ante Budimir, who's lethal in the box, comes in and scores the winning goal after really good work on the right from the right back, Stanisic. I can't think of his name. Is it Stanisic on the right? But anyway, having said that, I do think Ghana are going to make it very difficult. I kind of want them to get at least a point against Croatia because that would mean that Portugal would face Ghana, I think, in the round of 32. And yes, that's a lens that I'm going to continue to use. But it's going to be very tight. I wouldn't be surprised if it were a Ghana win. But I think it's going to be a draw. I just think I'm looking forward to this game, but I think it's going to be cagey and ugly.
Yeah, cagey and ugly, I agree with.
I think both games will be.
Yeah.
And it might be the story of the day overall at the World Cup, cagey and ugly, because of the nature of these third-place games. A lot of these teams know what they need to do, and therefore they're going to play to it. But besides that, we've got the filet mignon at the middle of the day, which is Group K. 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. DR Congo against Uzbekistan. For DR Congo, it's very simple. Win, you are into the next round of the World Cup, guaranteed on 4 points. You could potentially finish second in the group, depending on the goal differential, basically equaling or bettering what Portugal did against Uzbekistan if Colombia is able to get a victory over Portugal. It's not going to be in their thought process. Their thought process is going to be, get 3 points. Let's get to the next round of the World Cup. Let's do something special for our country. So that game is at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. The other game at the same time is Colombia versus Portugal. That one's happening in Miami. That was one that everyone had highlighted before the tournament started as arguably the best game in the group stage. And our preview here is going to be presented by Soccer.com. Make sure you visit Soccer.com for the widest selection of World Cup products. Free shipping on orders over $49. This Portugal warm-up from Soccer.com. I'm wearing the blue Colombia jersey. We've got the yellow one here. As we showed you previous this week, they also have a 1990 retro Adidas kit that they're selling at Soccer.com for this Colombia team. Both teams win, you get first place. For Colombia, a draw, they finish in first place in the group as well. You are Portuguese, so I'll give you a little bit of a platform here. For Portugal, how big of a moment is this, and how do they sort of go out and handle this matchup?
I think this game is going to be a true test of Portugal's capacity to be a contender for this World Cup. Because in the way that these two teams match up, first of all, Colombia, very good team, well-coached team. And the way they match up, I think, will expose some of Portugal's biggest flaws. Principally, their ability to defend in transition. Colombia is frightening in transition. Portugal are going to boss possession in this game. They're going to try and slow down the tempo, I would think. They're going to cough up the ball, and then they're going to struggle to keep up with those Colombian players flooding forward and figuring out a way to plug up all the holes that they can penetrate through. If Portugal are able to stave off Colombia's counterattacking football, it will give me some hope that they can do that against some of the other big boys, like a France, potentially an Argentina. So that's the thing that I'm looking for. How capable are you to stop Colombia from being able to expose you in transition. That, for me, is the number one thing in this game.
What do you take then from the way Portugal played last year in the Nations League? Because I thought they did really well with that.
I thought they were very fortunate against Spain
Okay.
in the final.
Well, I mean, Spain is a different level.
Completely. And they play a different type of football.
Right.
Although they can kill you in transition as well. They had opportunities to do so against Uruguay. They fluffed their lines. What do I take from that tournament? Not much.
Okay.
I thought their performance against Germany in the semifinal was outstanding. But that wasn't a very strong Germany. I didn't think that Nagelsmann really had a hold of the team. I think it's slightly different. They have their issues, but Germany's stronger right now. I think not the better question, but more appropriate question for this is, what do you take from the second game against Uzbekistan? Because that actually makes me feel a little bit more frightened about what could happen. Because in order to get Ronaldo more involved, they pushed up their line of confrontation. They pushed up their defensive line, which means that you're more likely to be exposed in transition. So that is now the problem that Portugal face. Having to push up their line of confrontation in order to make sure that the spaces that Ronaldo can attack are shorter, even in transition, as we saw in that third goal for Portugal, his second goal against Uzbekistan. And in doing so, realizing that you are opening up the avenues that will make you vulnerable to a team like Colombia. So how Roberto Martinez sets up his team is something that I'm very curious about. I don't suspect there'll be too many changes to the lineup.
Well, and the other piece was that João Felix coming in, the team got more direct. The team becomes more dangerous, but in doing that, you lose some possession, which can take away time you have to defend and can take away predictability of where and when you defend.
He does that, Martinez does that, because he wants a player closer to Cristiano Ronaldo. And the biggest difference between DR Congo, the match against DR Congo, and the match against Uzbekistan was the amount of space in between the center mids, the amount of space between the attacking mids and Cristiano Ronaldo. That changes against Uzbekistan. Everybody is together in this cluster.
Yeah.
That also opens up the corridor for Nuno Mendes, for Cancelo on the right. And again, that increases the likelihood that you are going to get exposed.
It messes with your rest defense.
Completely.
If you have everybody clustered in one spot, like then you open yourself
if the other
up for
team
counters.
breaks out,
Completely.
you're wide open. Yeah. On the other side for Colombia, I feel the same about what you said, which is two great performances, two emotional performances, two energetic performances to open up the World Cup. This is a team, though, where this is the step.
Yeah.
We don't wonder if they can beat a DR Congo. We don't wonder if they can beat a Paraguay or a Venezuela or even maybe an Ecuador. The question for them is, can they beat an Argentina? Can they beat a Brazil? Can they beat a Spain? Can they beat a France? And it is, for Colombia, one, not the deepest roster. So managing this game and what matters to them as they try to move to the next round and managing the energy over this tournament is going to be huge. And then as well, they won't have overwhelming talent in this game for the first time this tournament.
Yeah. But this is, like you said, this is the step. They know who they are as a team. They have a bunch of guys in their primes. They have one of the best players in this tournament in Luis Diaz. And they have is sort of uncomplicated good fellowship is what I would say, like is the vibe I get from Colombia. And that's not always the case with Colombia. So this is a really good team. I think irrespective of the result, it feels like these are two teams that can go very far in this tournament. And if Colombia win this game, then maybe I'll even say if you want a dark horse who could win this tournament, like this would be a good chance for them to prove it.
They're facing one considerable issue. Luis Suarez has been phenomenal for Sporting in Portugal. He just won the Golden Boot. Non-existent in this tournament.
Non-existent on the ball. I actually think his movement in terms of opening up spaces and being
For the
always
wide players.
available. I think that has been really, really good. And that's what I mean about the good fellowship. Is like you look at the way these guys are kind of like being unselfish and sacrificial and I know having watched Cristiano Ronaldo for 20 years, you don't get to see attackers who move like that. But like to me, it's like he's been a force magnifier without the ball.
The problem is nobody else is scoring.
No, that's true.
Well, not nobody else.
Yeah.
You've got your right back scoring.
Yeah.
And he scored one of the goals of the World Cup, by the way. But I think that is going to be their weakness going forward, including in this game against
So
Portugal?
what I would, and I know we're spending a long time on this, but what I would say coming into this, I didn't know Colombia could defend at the level necessary. I'm not really worried about their attack. I think they figure it out in attack. Like, the goals will come eventually. What's impressed me through 2 games is the way they've been so solid and I think pretty consistently dangerous, in spite of not putting the ball in the back of the net enough.
Yeah, I mean, this group hasn't changed a ton. 2024 Copa America, they blow Panama out in the quarterfinals. They beat Uruguay 1-0 in the semis, and then they lose to Argentina in extra time 1-0. And it was grinding it out defensively and then hoping for moments of brilliance. They've been able to be dominant possession-wise in the first 2 games of this tournament. That won't be the case today. It will also be interesting to see. They used 3 subs against DR Congo. Like, how far do they rotate? Does Dita get a start at center back? Does Jerry Mina get a start? Does Cucho get a start? Do they bring Cordoba in earlier? All the rotation that obviously Juanfer Quintero came on for them in place of James Rodriguez. But if Nestor Lozano wants to rotate this group at all, the guys he's bringing in have only played a couple minutes at this tournament. So one, it's your shot to get them a chance on the field, but also how much trust is there? And then you go back to sort of what we talked about with Ecuador of, like, for Colombia, beating Portugal in a World Cup alone would be a massive moment. You're beating a UEFA power, something you've rarely done. But this group is capable of more. And I think the focus, like Norway, should be on how do we set the stage for us to go forward?
I think you're exactly right.
No, don't say that.
By highlighting,
Clip this.
highlighting the defensive
talking
side
himself.
of this Colombian national team. Because if you look at the bench, you mentioned some of them, you have a lot of really interesting and talented attacking players who've not participated.
Yeah.
And that suggests to me that the focus is very much on the defensive side of things.
Even
Let's
in
keep
Ricardo Rios not being in the starting lineup and then coming in, he was, I thought, one of the best performers at Copa America as a destroying center mid. They've now said, well, we have a better destroying center mid. But guess what? We're also good. Like,
a more positionally disciplined defensive
and a little
center
bit
mid.
more running in Puerta.
Yeah.
But, like, that's their strength. Their depth is in center back and D mid. Their depth is at fullback. Like, that's their depth in this team. And that's the strength of this group. And Lukumi, I think, is the one, like, big addition to the group over the last 5 years. That's really helped
He allows
them level
Davis and Sanchez to have those moments where he gets out of position.
Yeah.
Because that was always one of the problems with Davis.
The phrase I would use is he gets to go hunt. Come on, you're a center
But
back. You want to go win it.
One player that I love that they have on the bench, last point, is Carrascal. But you never know what you're going to get from this guy. He's mercurial.
And that feels like a lot of the attacking talent. So that game, as I said, 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. Make sure to go to soccer.com. You can pick up the Trianda ball there. You can get the official stuff. You can get your kits. You can get some of these jerseys behind us. You can go get some of the T-shirts to help start representing some of the countries that you've decided you want to support, or if you're in a market. It feels like if you can sneak being a Netherlands fan when they come into your town, if you could sneak being a Colombia fan, I'd argue they're the most fun fans at this tournament. Egypt, whatever. Go to soccer.com. Get your gear now as the knockouts start to get locked in. And we finish up the night in a weird one. Group J, 10 p.m. Eastern time, Algeria versus Austin, Jordan versus Argentina. We talked about it for a little while yesterday. Jordan already eliminated, last place in the group. A strong showing for them, but they're not going to be able to get through to the next round. Argentina has clinched first place because of the head-to-head situation. Goal differential no longer the first tiebreaker inside of a group. So with the wins over Austria and Algeria, neither of those teams can pass them. Therefore, for Austria and Algeria, a little bit less to play for because they can't win the group. They both sit on 3 points. For both of them, 4 points would push them through to the next round. For Austria in second place, for Algeria in third place as one of the best third place teams. If one of these teams loses, now they are starting to look at goal differential. When they take the field, they will know exactly what they need to do because they are the last group to play. And this is why groups play at the same time, because in 1982, the shame of Gijón, which we've now talked about 500 times, Austria and Germany knew the result they needed because Algeria played ahead of them, and therefore they were able to play out a convenient tie or 1-0
It was
win.
a 1-0 Germany. It is
Right.
just it is wild that here we are 44 years later, and two of the three teams involved in the disgrace of Gijón, one being Austria, which was on the field, and the other being Algeria, which was eliminated because of the collusion between West Germany and Austria, are taking place now. I fully expect a toothless, scoreless draw, just like we got out of Paraguay and Australia, which saw both of them through.
The other part that's wild is it's not like Austria and Algeria are World Cup powers. This is only the third time Austria's been in the World Cup since that happened. So they're like 2 of their 4 World Cup appearances are going to be shameful performances on the front end and back end of a group stage.
Wow. So no chance it's going to be a shootout between these 2 teams.
I mean, Ralph Rangnick lives on his own world and does his own thing. Doyle, overall, 48 teams, third place, the way it's set up, head-to-head being the initial tiebreaker. This is obviously the nightmare scenario. Overall, what do you make of what it's been and the way it's set up?
There's been some of this. It's been a fun tournament, but there's been some of this, and some of this was the deal when you expanded to 48 teams. And why are we focusing more on this today for this game than we did when it was Australia-Paraguay? Because I thought that was the same exact scenario.
No, I brought that up.
Yeah,
It was a total dud.
Yeah.
There was a little bit for Paraguay of unknown because it wasn't guaranteed.
That's true. It was earlier in the round, but
the odds that enough teams were going to get four points was pretty low, and therefore it felt safe to say if they finish on 4 points, they get through. But Paraguay will finish probably 5th or 6th. And at the time, they didn't know that. And so there was a little bit of a, do you play, do you go for it? They didn't because they're incapable of it because Paraguay is about to get smoked by Germany in the next round. So for the record, South Korea.
Sorry, did you see Germany in this group stage?
Yeah. Have you seen Paraguay? South Korea right now, they are sitting in the last spot to qualify for the knockout round as a third place team. They've got like a 44% chance. I don't understand how that's even possible. It feels very much, one, that all the math doesn't understand that Algeria and Austria are allowed to look at the standings. So I don't think that's accounted for at all. And it does feel like DR Congo's ability to beat Uzbekistan has been underrated in some of the data that I've seen. And I think it's quite clear that they'll go out. They'll get 3 points. They'll move up on that list. Now it will really fall to Algeria and Croatia goal differential. That is going to be the deciding factor of who moves on to the next round, who doesn't. It will clinch our spots in the bracket, and we'll get to come back tomorrow and talk all about the bracket and what it looks like going forward. We will have an official path for every single team to the World Cup. We're going to get to dig into it. We're going to get to talk about it. We have your preview of the U.S. men's national team in Bosnia coming up. That game, of course, on Wednesday night. Canada will open up the knockout rounds tomorrow against South Africa in LA. If you have thought, maybe I always wanted to go to a World Cup game, it seems kind of expensive, find a South Korean who already purchased a ticket to go to that game at SoFi, who are dumping them right now, and grab one of those and get out to the stadium and get to that game. You will be here with Michele tomorrow to hold it down. Myself and Doyle are going to take a little nap for the afternoon. That does not mean we're not going to be locked in to watch Jesse Marsh belt Canada for all the people and tell the most truthful stories as he goes into that game and hopefully get a historic win for Canada. And then from there, we rock and roll. 3 single elimination knockout games on Monday to get us into this round of 32. It's 3 games every single day. There is no break before the round of 16. We go through that and we're into the quarterfinals. So we haven't eliminated a lot of teams yet. We're going to eliminate like double the amount in the next 5 days, but it's going to be fun. It's going to be exciting. We have your schedule up there for later today. We, of course, will be back tomorrow. We will be alive post the U.S. men's national team game, as we have been the entire tournament. And we just keep World Cupping. That's what we do. Copa Mundial. I appreciate you dumbing down some of the accents on some of the Portuguese names on this show as well. It was a real good teamwork moment from you. Real sharing.
Speaking of Portuguese names and dumbing down names, guess who I'm watching Portugal-Colombia with?
Eric Krakauer.
Exactly.
Shout out, Figo. We love you, man. Thank you to all of you who are here helping us out. Always a big shout out to Derek. No thank you to Connor. And we will talk to you all again very, very soon.